What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we're going to be handing out grades to every NBA team at the midway point in the season. We're going to talk about where they've been and what they can do to improve, or what they should keep doing well. All that and much more coming your way right now! Nick, we have just seen the All-Star game. All-Star weekend is behind us. We are at the midway point of the NBA season, and there have been some teams that have underperformed and some teams that have performed way, way better than we expected. So let's take a look. Let's start with the list, and we're going to go in alphabetical order so everybody can keep up. And let's start with the Atlanta Hawks. Listen, the Atlanta Hawks have a very good roster, but they're vastly underperforming, and that was signified by the firing of Lloyd Pierce. Their head coach had to get fired, and for them to bring in Nate McMillan as their new head coach was an incredible move for this Atlanta Hawks organization. They're going to be in a good spot moving forward. They have issues. It's as far as injuries to Chris Dunn and Bogdan Bogdanovic. Danilo Gallinari got hurt for a while, so they have to get people healthy, get them back and rolling. We haven't seen this team at its full form yet, so I think we have a lot more to get into. They've just underperformed as of late, but I expect this to get picked up as these players get healthy, and I'm looking more toward next year at this point. I think the Hawks are out of it.
I totally agree with you. I think that this firing had to happen after that 15-game skid. And now that they have a new head coach there and they're going to get the team healthy again, if they can show any signs of life by the end of the season, I'd call it a W. But right now, I would give the Atlanta Hawks a D- and say that you got to chalk up the season and say we got to look forward to the future.
All right, moving on to the Boston Celtics. I'm going to give them a D. I mean, it's been absolutely abysmal to say the least. And that's my favorite team. It's pathetic what I'm seeing on the court here. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have done a really good job all season long, except for the month of February. The month of February, it's like they forgot how to play basketball. It's like we're actually living the plot of Space Jam, where these NBA stars lose their powers. It's unreal. But then you add in the fact that Kemba Walker, Jeff Teague, Tristan Thompson have been some of the most inconsistent players that where we need them to actually show up and show out for this team to be successful. That's why we're calling on Trader Danny to actually get something done. And that's why we're calling on Brad Stevens to actually figure something out, because we haven't seen anything. We can't just rely on Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to get the job done here. The Celtics are behind the New York Knicks in the standings. Behind the New York Knicks in the standings. That can't happen. And at this point, the Boston Celtics have obviously vastly underperformed.
Yeah, I'm going to give the Boston Celtics a C. I think that with the way Brad Stevens is coaching, it's completely lackluster. He's showing that he shouldn't be there in Boston anymore. There's too much talent for him, and he can't handle it. And the lack of a center is really bothering this team. They can't compete with the top teams in the East, and they're really suffering right now. And being, like you said, being behind the Knicks is it's a bad sign.
It really is. Talking about the other team in New York, we have the Brooklyn Nets, and they don't deserve anything else but an A at this point. I mean, making that 4-team trade for James Harden obviously shifted things in their favor. They paired up Kyrie, were able to keep him, kept KD, added James Harden. The only thing you could say is that they did lose a lot of pieces that they're selling out for a championship here. But you know what? That's what it's all about, is winning championships. And even if this team has a championship window of 2 or 3 seasons, that's what they're selling out for. That's what all those pieces were there for in the beginning. So now we're taking a look at it, and they're on full blast right now. I mean, James Harden is thriving. Kyrie Irving's getting the job done. Kevin Durant has to come back from injury, and he's still going to be one of the best players in the world. This Brooklyn Nets team is on fire, and they can only go up from here.
Yeah, 100%. They definitely deserve an A, and that trade for James Harden was totally worth it, even though you gave away your future. Right now, you're sitting pretty, and you're looking like you're going to win the East and compete against whoever is atop the West. So the Nets are looking really nice right now, and it's totally worth everything they had to give up.
Looking at the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to give them a B. I believe the Charlotte Hornets made some good decisions when it came to drafting LaMelo Ball and then also signing Gordon Hayward and getting some of the free agents that they got as well. That they have shown a lot of life. Michael Jordan's team has really shown that they have come to play and come to really compete in the Eastern Conference. They're not there yet. They are not at their full potential, but nobody expected them to be. This is their first season together. LaMelo Ball is still a rookie. I expect them to continue to grow and continue to progress. This is a building year. I'm going to give them a B because of how well they've performed. I just don't expect it to stay that way. I'm going to give them that B.
Yeah, I agree with you. They deserve a B because they've performed over what we expected them to do, and it's mostly because LaMelo Ball and Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward is back to form. He looks like his old self, and LaMelo Ball is looking like he's ready to take over this team once they're willing to give him the reins, and he's just going to run with it. This team has a very bright future ahead of him.
For sure. Looking at the Chicago Bulls, the Bulls are right in the thick of things in the at the end of the Eastern Conference playoff spot. They had one of the best months in team history when it came to February. Zach LaVine has been absolutely incredible. He's an all-star for a reason, and you know what? They are on full blast. I'm giving them a B minus. They are improving and continuing to work through their struggles, but they have a lot of defensive issues that they're going to have to work through. I think that they are overperforming at this point, which is why I'm giving them the B minus. But at this point, I believe that the roster still needs to be overhauled a little bit. They need to get weapons around Zach LaVine, really build out this roster because Kobe White and these guys really aren't going to get the job done for Chicago.
I'm actually going to give the Chicago Bulls a C plus. I do believe that they're performing ahead of where we had them, but it's mostly because of Zach LaVine and him only. Everybody else is kind of pulling him down, and he has to carry the weight. So if it weren't for Zach LaVine, this team would be one of the worst in the league, and you can't give a team too high of a grade because of one player. So I think a C plus is very justified for the Bulls.
Looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers next, and they weren't going to compete this year. That was the bottom line. But what they were able to do was turn the James Harden situation into their gold mine. I mean, they cashed in without having a star player leave their team, and were able to retain a ton of young talent to help build out this roster. Jared Allen and Torian Prince end up on the Cleveland Cavaliers. They still have Andre Drummond on the roster. They're looking to move him. They're going to get a ton of assets and young players for him as well. So look for that move to help bolster this roster. The Cleveland Cavaliers are going to get younger. They're going to start building for the future. I'm going to give them an even-keeled C because of what they were able to do transactionally. Outside of that, just from a basketball standpoint, I mean, it would have been an F. But what they're able to do to build for the future so far has been nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a C plus just because I think they are exactly where we expected them to be rank wise. But the transaction getting Jared Allen was massive, and if they can move Andre Drummond for a couple other pieces, that would be another huge move. So I think the Cavaliers are moving in the right direction. They're actually have they have a direction they're looking forward to.
For sure. Moving on to the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks have underperformed to say the least. And when you're talking about the Western Conference, you can't get too far behind because that may end up being a hole you can't get yourself out of. And the biggest disappointment here has been Kristaps Porzingis. He really has just not shown up. Luka Doncic can't do it all himself. As we saw with Devin Booker in Phoenix, he had to get some help to be able to compete. And Kristaps was supposed to be that help, but he's just not doing it. And what the Dallas Mavericks need to do is need to either move on from KP or they need to actually, get him healthy, get him right, and start adding other pieces as well. So they have to figure out whether they're going to be winners, they're going to be buyers or sellers at this deadline. Right now I have them at a C minus because of how underwhelming they really are.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a D plus. Actually, I think that Luka's just not able to carry the load by himself, and like you said, KP is not pulling his weight. They need to figure out what's going wrong and how they can fix it really quickly. They're going to have to chalk up the season. They're not going to compete in the West, and I think that they're going to have to look forward to the future at this point.
Moving on to the Denver Nuggets, we have Nikola Jokic, and he is making a very, very interesting argument for his candidacy for league MVP. I mean, he is arguably the best center that we have had since Shaquille O'Neal in the NBA. I mean, he's just that dominant. He and a completely different skill set. So don't act like I'm trying to compare the two. Nikola Jokic is an absolute incredible talent. He is leading this team as a center with Jamal Murray and some of these other guys that they have around him. They are primed for for greatness in the Western Conference. They're going to be in the thick of this playoff race, and I'm really excited. I'm going to give them an A minus for where they are. I think Jamal Murray can still step it up, and some of their play needs to be improved, but other than that, they're performing on all cylinders.
I'm going to give him a B here. I think that, like you said, Jokic is putting up an MVP season, and you've got some great surrounding talent that's playing really well. But you're still middle of the pack right now in the West. You're got to compete with the Utah Jazz and the LA Clippers and Lakers, and even the Phoenix Suns are playing better than the Nuggets right now. So I think that the Nuggets have some room to improve.
For sure. Looking at the Detroit Pistons next, it's been a rough year for fans in Detroit. Taking a look at their 10-25 record going into the All-Star break, the one bright spot they had though was Jeremy Grant, and it looks like at this point Jeremy Grant might be dealt, whether it's to the Boston Celtics or to some of the other teams that have been looking at him and calling Detroit about him. They also have Blake Griffin, who is a good central trade piece as well. I believe that he'll end up being on the move. It'll be interesting to see. The Detroit Pistons need to utilize the talent that they have as trade assets and not as building blocks. So I think if they can make these trades happen, their grade will drastically improve, just like the Cleveland Cavaliers. But right now, I have them at an F.
Yeah, I have them at a D minus. I'm right there with you. The Detroit Pistons are going nowhere fast, and they don't have a direction of where they're going next. So I think that they've got to completely scrap, try to grab as many draft pieces as possible, and look forward to the future, and hopefully have a direction when they get there.
For sure. Moving on to the Golden State Warriors. Listen, the Golden State Warriors have performed well above where I expected them to be this year. And you know what? I'll give you credit where credit is due, Nick. You called it. You said that the Warriors would be at the top of the West or near the top of the West, and that's exactly where they are. But you know what? Steph Curry's playing absolutely out of his mind. He is carrying this team with absolutely every fiber of his being. Absolutely incredible job. He stands fourth in the league in points per game at 29 and a half. They're hanging on to the 8th seed in the West, but as of right now, they are in a position to make the playoffs and continue to compete moving forward. They have young James Wiseman waiting in the wings, trying to learn the NBA game and get up to speed. There's a lot here. The Golden State Warriors should be excited. I'm giving them a B.
I have the Golden State Warriors at a B plus. They're exactly where I thought they would be. I know I said they would be top 3 in the West by the end of the year, but hey, they're gonna make the playoffs. It's still above expectations without missing half the Splash Brothers. And I think that if we look at it, Steph Curry looks like Russell Wilson. If we're being honest, and he's really carrying this team. He can't be undervalued, and you can't ever bet against Steph Curry.
That's right. Moving on to the Houston Rockets. Listen, the Houston Rockets are in a big jumbled mess at this point. It all started with Daryl Morey deciding to step down from his position for personal reasons. Then the relationship soured with James Harden to the point where he wasn't getting along with Boogie Cousins, and there were just issues on the roster. We don't need to detail everything about what happened with the Harden deal. Nonetheless, they were able to parlay James Harden into draft picks for half of the next century, and they'll be able to build a winner moving forward. Outside of that, there's really nothing interesting about this Houston Rockets team. I saw them live, and they were great with James Harden. Without them, they're not worth watching. They're really not. The only thing that saves me from giving them an F is the fact that they were able to get so many draft assets moving forward through that deal that I have to give them a D minus.
You might not want to give him an F, but I'm going to, because you not only lost James Harden to the trade, and you got some good trade assets from that, but you lost Boogie Cousins. You had to scrap him because he just wasn't fitting your scheme, and now you're out a big piece who you thought you would have with John Wall to help fix this team up, but now you're back at square one working around John Wall, and you're not going anywhere fast. John Wall's not the piece to be building around, so I don't know what direction the Houston Rockets are going in at this point.
Moving on to the Indiana Pacers, and the Pacers are at on the outside looking in when it comes to the Eastern Conference playoffs. And they lost TJ Warren to foot surgery. They traded Victor Oladipo, and listen, they're a mess. They have Karis LeVert, and he's undergoing kidney cancer surgery following the trade. I wish him literally nothing but the best. I really hope he can make a full recovery, make it back to the NBA. But the Indiana Pacers are in a very, very tough state of flux right now, and they're just in a bad spot all around. I'm gonna have to give them a C minus. Obviously, the what happened to Karis LeVert they cannot control. T.J. Warren getting hurt is tough, and then trading Victor Oladipo. It's tough in Indiana right now.
I'm going to give the Indiana Pacers a C plus. I think that they've actually performed a little above where I expected them to be, and even with the pieces that they've moved and lost, I think they're still performing very well, and they have some good bench depth that has been performing extremely well. So I think that they have a bright future and that they can still compete in the East if they get some of these pieces back. So not all hope is lost for the Indiana Pacers this season.
For sure. And then moving on to the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers, they look dominant. I mean, when you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George leading your team, how can you not? My only concern with them is Paul George's lack of efficiency and lack of production at the end of fourth quarters. The playoff P, I mean, I hope he turns it on, because this guy he's not going to get it done late in the fourth quarter. And you can't put the ball in Kawhi Leonard's hands every single time, because he's just going to get trapped, knowing full well that Paul George isn't going to be able to make a play. So they have to figure that out. I'm going to give them a solid B.
Yeah, I think the Clippers are actually performing extremely well. I'm going to give them an A minus. I think that them being able to be ahead of the Lakers at this point is an amazing accomplishment, and it just shows how far they've come this season. Now that you've had PG and Kawhi Leonard together for over a year now, they're starting to click. Even though Paul George is struggling offensively, I think that the team overall is performing much better as a whole.
Moving on to their counterparts from the Staples Center, the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers and the Miami Heat had a really tough go of it. I mean, it was the quickest turnaround in NBA history, from NBA championship to the start of the next season. And now, it seems like it's starting to catch up with their legs. They're really starting to struggle with conditioning. And then they lost Anthony Davis on top of it to his calf strain, or strained Achilles rather. There's a lot to it. But essentially the Lakers, they're toward the top of the West. I mean, LeBron James is still outperforming everyone. He's still the best of the best. And at this point, the Lakers are in prime position to make a lot of noise moving forward. I give them a B plus, because they have had to persevere through certain injuries, and as of right now, that they're still toward the top of the Western Conference.
I agree with you. I'm going to give them a B plus as well. I think if you take everything into consideration, there's a reason they're not atop the West right now, but they can totally be there when healthy. Once this team is put together, I think they're going to be as dominant as they were. And with this break coming up, it's going to be at the perfect time for Anthony Davis to get healthy and LeBron to get some rest. So I think that the Lakers have performed pretty well with the circumstances, and they're going to get better as time goes on.
For sure. Then moving on to the Memphis Grizzlies, which is a very interesting team here, anchored by Ja Morant and Jonas Valanciunas. Great 1-2 punch that they have here. I'm taking a look at this roster, and while they may be out of the playoffs as of right now, they have lost a lot of these games that haven't been played yet because of COVID protocol reasoning. So when we get to actually see them play these games, they haven't played as much as everyone else. They've had longer time breaks and just not a lot of rhythm going on for them. I expect the Memphis Grizzlies to actually win a few more games. I'm gonna give them a solid B right now. I think that they're performing well above where they should be right now, on top of the fact that they haven't been able to really get anything going, more because of COVID reasoning than anything else. So I expect that to all get resolved pretty quickly, and they'll be able to figure it out in the second half of the season.
I'm going to give the Grizzlies C plus. I believe that they are a little below where we expected them to be. I thought that they would improve the season, but taking everything into consideration and how the year has gone for them, they just haven't been able to control their fate, and things just aren't going right for them. So I think they can turn this around, but right now it's just not looking too good for them.
Looking at the Miami Heat, just like I talked about with the Lakers, they had an incredibly fast turnaround, not a lot of offseason to rehab all their injuries and all the stress that they went through. But taking a look at it, they're in the middle of the Eastern Conference after getting off to a slow start. They're right in the thick of things, and Jimmy Butler has been he's been sidelined, and he's had some issues. Bam Adebayo is the anchor of this team. Eric Spoelstra is relying on Bam Adebayo both offensively, but specifically defensively. This guy can stop all five positions at any given point in time. Whether it's Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson or whoever needs to pick up the slack, these guys are starting to get it done, and they've had a bit of a resurgence going into the midway point of the season. So I'm going to give them just a good C. I believe they deserve a C.
I'm going to give the Miami Heat a C minus. I think that you made it to the finals last year, and there's no reason to be this low in the rankings up to this point. I don't care about the quick turnaround, because you look at the Lakers and they're still a top 5 team in the West. So there's no reason the Miami Heat are nearly out of the playoffs at this point. I think that they need to have they have so much bench depth, and none of it is improving this team at all. I think that the rest of the team needs to look at what Bam Adebayo is doing and start repeating what he's doing.
With the Milwaukee Bucks, we're talking about a team that's led by Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is always in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference. They're normally at the top, and as it stands right now, they're underperforming just a little bit. Giannis has stepped up a bit. They had a 5-game winning streak going into the break, but they have their work cut out for them because they're not competing with the top teams like they used to. And I think a lot of the players that have ended up moving on from their roster have really killed them. And now it's at a point where this team doesn't look like it's championship ready, and Giannis is not going to be able to carry them by himself. I'm going to have to give them a C plus.
Yeah, I'm right there with you at a C plus. The Milwaukee Bucks just have not been producing, and you know what? They don't really have any excuses. I think this team should be much better, and they should be running right through the East with the way the rest of the teams are playing. So I think that they need to start picking it up and figuring out what's not working.
For sure. And then we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, the team with the worst record in the NBA. Listen, when you have the number 1 overall pick, and then you still continuously have the worst record in the NBA, there's something that needs to be said about the fact that whether it's just the team or whatever the case is, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. You're telling me that's the worst team in the league? That it shouldn't be. And then obviously Ryan Saunders was fired in February. There's a lot of things that need to happen with this Minnesota roster. It was just announced that Kevin Garnett will not be buying the team. So there's a whole lot of fluctuation going on here. Not a lot of positivity. I mean, this is a straight failure in my perspective.
It 100% is, and we knew this from the get-go because they drafted Anthony Edwards, a guy that's not going to help them, a guy that's not ready to compete at the highest level. He needs to grow still, and D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns don't want to be there, and they're kind of making that known through their play. They're just not performing up to expectations, and this team should be a lot further along than they are right now.
Moving on to the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Pelicans with Zion Williamson and Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, they have a very young roster that is able to compete, and they're at a tough spot where can they compete in the Western Conference for a back end playoff spot, or do they need to sell off some of their older pieces and continue building for the future? It's going to be up to management, but as of right now, I have to give them a C. JJ Redick looks like he's on his way out, and the New Orleans Pelicans need to start building around uh, Zion Williamson and really get this offense rolling. They need to start winning some games in the Western Conference and show why Zion it was the preeminent first overall pick.
I'm going to give them a C plus. I think the New Orleans Pelicans started off slow, but now they're starting to gain some traction. Brandon Ingram's been strong. Zion Williamson starting to get a lot better. I think that Lonzo Ball is going to fit well with them. I know the trade rumors are around him as well. But I think this team overall has worked through adversity, and they're starting to blend much better as we reach the midpoint of the season.
For sure. And then looking at the New York Knicks, we have quite literally the biggest surprise of the entire NBA season so far. Listen, the best decision that the Knicks ever made was hiring Tom Thibodeau. I love Tibbs. He's an incredible coach, and there's no reason, there's a reason why the Knicks are atop the league defensively speaking, because Tibbs is a defensive-minded head coach. He was when he was an assistant coach with the Celtics, he was when he was a head coach with the Bulls, and he was when he was a head coach with the Minnesota Timberwolves. He has a staple and he does it really, really well. So it's not a surprise that the Knicks are holding opponents to the fewest points per game in the entire league. On top of the fact that Julius Randle looks like an absolute stud. That's why he was voted to the All-Star team. Obi Toppin has looked really good. RJ Barrett quickly has done really good as a rookie. So this New York Knicks team is definitely overperforming at the moment. I'm giving them a straight A minus.
I'm going to give them a B plus. The New York Knicks are an astonishment. They've really blown me away with how they're playing. Julius Randle is absolutely amazing and has proven it. I think that it's almost like Obi Toppin was his Jordan Love, if we want to take that. And I think that with Emmanuel Quickly playing the way he is, this team is on fire. Tom Thibodeau is doing something right. I think that they are going to be a big team for a long time.
For sure. And then we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, and listen, we knew who their bright spot was. We knew who the guy was going to be. It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This guy's an incredible talent. After the roster has been decimated year after year after year, just losing talent left and right. Without Chris Paul, no Dennis Schroeder, no Danilo Gallinari. It's been interesting to watch Shai Gilgeous-Alexander actually put up numbers and lead this team. So I'm going to give them a D plus. I think that they have a lot of work to do, but they have a very young, talented player here that they can build around.
Yeah, I also think that the addition of Al Horford was a sneaky one. I think that he's definitely helped them a little bit, and I think the Oklahoma City Thunder performed a little bit better in that than I expected. So that's why I'm going to give them a C.
Going on to the Orlando Magic, and listen, outside of Nikola Vukovic, this roster just ain't it. Markelle Fultz is out, and Cole Anthony has an injury. Aaron Gordon is out with an injury. There's just a ton of decimation to this roster that has happened. And like I said, outside of Vukovic, there's nothing to be proud of in Orlando. Vukovic, however, is an all-star and is on the trading block. As I talked about before, the Boston Celtics are going to be in the mix here. You talked about how they need a center. Well, Vukovic on the trade block, it seems like a perfect fit nonetheless, right?
Absolutely. Orlando Magic have been absolutely awful. I'm going to give them an F. I think that they have so much to improve upon. And I watched Nikola Vukovic in person, and his body language says that he doesn't want to be there. He's too talented to be there. He doesn't feel any competition from his teammates to push him to be better. I think that he needs to be in another place, and the Orlando Magic just need to start from scratch.
I agree. I gave them an F as well. Going on to the Philadelphia 76ers, and by far and away one of the best teams in the NBA. The 76ers have relied on Joel Embiid to absolutely lead this team. Ben Simmons has definitely played Robin to Embiid's Batman, and it's working out for them in their favor. Don't forget, the addition of Doc Rivers has really come in and helped them a lot. Seth Curry has come in and provided much needed depth and ability to score. Overall, the 76ers provide a very big counterpart to the Brooklyn Nets, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I look at the 76ers, I'm giving them an A. They did an absolutely incredible job so far.
I'm right there with you, giving them an A. They
Yeah.
have completely exceeded where I expected them to be. Joel Embiid looks better than ever, playing MVP caliber basketball right now. You couldn't have asked for the 76ers to be playing better right now, and I think that they're the team to watch out for in the East.
I feel dirty giving an A to a Philadelphia team, but that's just me. We have the Phoenix Suns, and listen, the Suns, man, they added Chris Paul, and everything just seemed to click at that point. You got your man Devin Booker, the most disrespected player in the NBA. Chris Paul, who's an absolute phenomenal point guard. And don't forget about that guy at center, DeAndre Ayton, number 22. He's an incredible force that can bang with some of the best of these centers. He does a lot of really good things for them. And this is the best Suns team that I have seen since Steve Nash was leading this roster with Josh Richardson. Absolutely incredible stuff. I give the Phoenix Suns an A.
Right there with you again. Phoenix Suns have blown me away, just like the New York Knicks. I think that them being right there with the Lakers and the Clippers in the West is just astonishing, and that just shows you how much Chris Paul matters and how good Devin Booker is. I can't believe he was a snub of the All-Stars still. Unbelievable, but nonetheless, the Suns are an amazing team, and they're only going to get better from here.
Yeah, and if you want to be annoyed at anybody, look no further than the Portland Trailblazers, because they have one of the best offenses in the league. In fact, they rank near the top 3 when it comes to offensive efficiency. That's without CJ McCollum. That's without Yusuf Nurkic. It's all been on the back of Damian Lillard, who is number 3 in NBA points per game at 29.6. This guy's an incredible talent, and he wasn't even voted into the NBA All-Star starters. He was a backup because, for some odd reason, we have to disrespect anybody that plays for the Portland Trailblazers. Nonetheless, Gary Trent and Carmelo Anthony have really held their own, have really stepped up for this roster, and then has helped them get into the position where they are in the Western Conference playoff.
Yeah, Melo's looking like the Melo of old. He's finally contributing just like we wanted him to this team. He has a great fit there in Portland, and I'm going to give the Trailblazers a B. I think exactly that. They're going to compete in the West. They're not going to be the top dog, but hey, they're treading in the right direction.
For sure. Then we move on to the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are on yet another losing streak. It's just really tough all the way around. You have De'Aaron Fox, who's an incredible talent, kind of reminds me of a younger John Wall. I think he has a lot to offer. Harrison Barnes, who, they took away from the Golden State Warriors. I think they still overpaid for him, but nonetheless, a very good 3-and-D player. I like him a lot. The player here that we need to all be looking at, though, is Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is the fastest player to reach 1,000 made 3-point shots. That's faster than Steph Curry. That's faster than Kobe Bryant. That's faster than Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, whoever you want to add. He is the fastest in NBA history. Buddy Hield, it needs to show up more talent. And this guy needs a better opportunity to showcase his talents. I'm giving the Kings a D because they have so much talent on this roster, so much potential. They're just not living up to it.
I'm going to give them an F. I think that the Kings, like you said, have all this potential, and they're doing nothing with it. It stems from the coaching. It stems from lack of depth on the bench. I think there's too much talent that's being wasted here, and if you don't start fixing it now, these guys, De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield, are going to be asking for trades or going elsewhere once their contracts are up.
For sure. And then we move on to the San Antonio Spurs, where, this was supposed to be kind of a rebuilding year, kind of a year where they kind of throw caution to the wind and they just kind of let their game play and see if they could trade any of their assets. But in fact, they're back to their old winning ways. I mean, Greg Popovich seems to have gotten his old mojo back, and DeMar DeRozan has found his game as a top facilitator. You have LaMarcus Aldridge, who's an absolutely incredible talent who is anchoring this team. The San Antonio Spurs are definitely overperforming from what I expected. I'm going to give them a B plus.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The San Antonio Spurs have been playing very much above where I expected them to be. I'm going to give them a B. I think that they still have some room to improve, but for the roster they have and the overhaul that they're going through, I think that they're definitely performing above expectations.
And then let's go on to the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors have had the most intriguing season so far in the sense that they don't play a single home game all year round. They're not going to be able to play in Toronto because of COVID-19. So they have had to make do with other obstacles and things like that. Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam have had to step up and, do the job. And don't forget about some of their other players like Kyle Lowry and what's the other guy's name? Drawing a blank.
Van Fleet.
No, I said his name. Don't forget about other players like Kyle Lowry and OG Anunoby. I mean, these guys are absolutely incredible. They have a lot of talent on this roster. They have underperformed. I think it all started with the fact that they were all displaced to start the season and didn't really know how things were going. They also missed time because of COVID and lost players and coaches. So, things kind of got thrown up in the air. I'm going to give them a C.
Yeah, actually, I'm right there with you with the C because the Raptors, honestly, I don't think they're any better than the Boston Celtics. I think that they have such high expectations because of where they've been the past couple of years, and they've just been underperforming. And I don't know if it's Nick Nurse or if it's just some of the players just not playing up to snuff. But guys like Pascal Siakam need to step up and be who we know them to be if they're going to compete in the East.
For sure. And then as we start to round out the list here, we have the Utah Jazz, who are an incredibly talented team headed by Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. It seems like they have mended their relationship and have been able to work together to on pace for one of the best teams in the NBA put together. They did come into the break a little on a skid, losing 4 of their last 10 games. Nonetheless, it looks like Quinn Snyder is on pace to win NBA Coach of the Year. All the power to him. I'm happy for him. I'm giving the Utah Jazz an A.
I'm right there with you. The Utah Jazz have been an amazing team, and I think it was only time that stood in their way until they were atop the West, and they were right there with the Lakers and Clippers, and you can't look past them because they are true competition for the rest of the league, and I think that they are a team to watch out for, especially in the West.
And then as our final team rounds out this list, we have the Washington Wizards. And the Washington Wizards started off extremely slow. I mean, losing 12 of 15 to start the season. They've picked it up. Bradley Beal has gotten his ways, his game back underneath him. And, he's averaging a league high 32.9 points per game. Absolutely incredible stuff from him. And that this roster, the way it's currently constructed, is not going to be able to win a championship anytime soon. I believe, even though Bradley Beal has said he wants to stay in Washington, they're going to have to move him if they want to progress this franchise any further because of the sheer amount of assets that he's going to end up bringing back. I'm looking at you, Trader Danny. I think the Washington Wizards here, they're going to get a D plus from me. As much as they have with Bradley Beal, the rest of the roster is just not up to snuff.
I'm going to give them a C minus. I think that they are performing pretty well for the circumstances. Bradley Beal has been playing lights out, and Russell Westbrook starting to pick up the pace. So I think this team has some weapons that they can build around. Yes, they're getting a little bit older, but I think that they're treading in the right direction. If they can get one more piece, I think they can start competing with the rest of the East.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching, and make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. We go live every single day. That'll be all. Peace and love.